4 bears, 1 title, and a cover-up that will blow your mind.
Hello, I'm your completely serious and not at all whatsoever ironic host, Dusk Legend, and this is a brand new segment I'd like to call the Foil Foray. Now, before I get too deep down the rabbit hole, I have to point one thing out, and one thing only. This is totally a joke, by the way, okay? First of all, I'm just saying, because I'm going to be sitting here talking about shit that people are going to call me a fucking tinfoil hat for anyway. So you know what I say? I say, let's get it out of the way. I'm protecting my brainwaves now. The objective of the Foil Foray is to dive into different conspiracy theories that crop up around the web, as well as different philosophical ideas to explore their deeper meanings and analyze their implications. Furthermore, our thesis here at Foil Foray is that it's not always the immediate answers to the tough questions being asked that are the most important, rather, what questions to follow up with. In today's episode of the Foil Foray, we'll be diving into a topic that seems innocuous and harmless at first, but when you follow the trail down to where it leads, you'll find that you're doubting even your own memories. The Berenstein Bears books are a series of books that date back to 1962, written by one Jan and Stan Berenstein, or should I say, Berenstein. Now first of all, their names are fucking Jan and Stan, okay? Now I don't know if that's just a pen name, but that shit rubs me the wrong way right off the bat, okay? Duly noted. Now let me start off with the conflict. Growing up, I've read these books. I've watched the old shows. I probably have VHSs and books somewhere at my parents' house or something somewhere. However, one crucial thing is that I remember this series being called Berenstein Bears. The amount of people, the sheer volume of people, and the conviction with which they've come forth to say that they remember this series as being called the Berenstein Bears is alarming to me, and it got my attention. Now, someone who's never heard of this might think they just rebranded, right? I mean, maybe there was some anti-Semitic vibes coming off, the people who didn't like the Berenstein Bears, the Berensteins. You know, it makes sense. People get it. This hat's really uncomfortable, by the way. So like most people, when I heard about this, I went to Google, and upon searching to find out what the exact point in time that the series name was changed, and to find out why, figuring it had something to do with like anti-Semitic comments or something, right? It's always been that. Now, the first thing you might be inclined to say is, human memory is not perfect, people remember things incorrectly all the time, and I'm not inclined to disagree with you. That's not false information. Our memories are elastic. There's a certain inherent degree of, like, confirmation bias, okay, to anything that we recall, and in a lot of what I've learned in psychology, it actually steadily decreases the more you recall it, okay? And even crime witness accounts lose a certain degree of accuracy moments after witnessing the crime in question. I'm so sure of what I know to be true from my past, okay? I don't have necessarily a photographic memory, but there are a few things. I'm about animation, I'm about cartoons, and I have a special section of my brain that remembers animation and drawings, illustrations that I saw when I was younger. And along with the fact that I decided after hearing about this to ask several friends, I even called up my parents, okay? Both in their 50s confirmed that they recall it being Berenstein Bears. Now, you might be asking, Dusk, why the fuck do I care? Why the fuck do I care? I'll tell you why you care. You care because it's not just the Berenstein Bears. Rather, there's an entire website named after a phenomenon called the Mandela Effect that's dedicated to pointing out different inconsistencies in people's memories. Now, it's not just about children's books. There's a lot of it, surprisingly, is brand names and dates. And apparently, these are two that I don't necessarily have a stance on, but apparently a lot of people remember being taught there's 52 states and something about the location of New Zealand. I'll be honest with you, I would love to put out some statistics on memory retention and recallability, and maybe when I have more time to put into one of these, I'll do that in the future. But this is the first episode, and I really just want to talk about this. This series is more about the conceptual stuff and considering all the options. So I want to get real into that. I want to take a fucking bite out of that shit. The Mandela Effect itself is named after Nelson Mandela, of which people seem to have discrepancies regarding his actual date of death. A lot of people think he died in jail, while a lot of people think he died back in 2013. And you would think it's an important figure's death. You know what I mean? Like, Wikipedia, get your shit together. What am I paying you for? Oh, wait, I'm not, because every time I go to your fucking page, you're begging me for money in the top-hand corner while I'm trying to read about fucking, I don't know, dicks and shit. So this really brings up an issue to me. Now, grab your beer, kids, because here's people's proposed answer to this. A lot of people, jumping admittedly to an extreme, seem to think that we've crossed into, ready for? A parallel timeline. I'm not the kind of person who's gonna hear that and be like, that's bollocks! Bullshit! You know? I wouldn't say that would be my first reply to the whole situation. But in order to get closer to determining what we should perceive as the reason for this, we need to ask questions about each angle you could take in response to this situation. Now, starting off, let's go with the realist. Now, the realist might say, you know, the guy who's grounded very much, he may or may not necessarily believe in multidimensional theory, but for this example, let's say he doesn't. This is the one. This is the universe right here. This is it. Now, by the way, I look like that fucking Brett Michaels guy, that fucking tour bus of love dude, but whatever. Now, the realist might say, this is just revisionism. This is whatever, the company went out and they changed the name. But here's my response to that. My response to that is, how come there's no record of the name changing? If it is the case that it was, get messages. If it is the case that it was Berenstein Bears and it was changed, then there would be a reason or a date or an explanation for it. And unless there was some kind of crazy fucking campaign, some fucking 9/11 deep level fucking conspiracy shit regarding Berenstein Bears, where people had to go onto the internet and remove all the information regarding it to the point where you can't even find it on the fucking internet, where you can find fucking a lot of things, okay, I'll put it that way, then it leaves you to wonder how much credence you can give to that perspective. Then there's the person who's the outright denier of this, who doesn't want to hear anything we're saying. And I don't blame them. If you are someone who, to your knowledge, this book has always been the Berenstein Bears, and it's not just this example. I have a link to that website, the Mandela Effect website, which has an extensive list of different things that are examples of this kind of memory discrepancy. Then you might say, it's always been Berenstein Bears. What are you talking about? And I wish I had an answer to that, because I don't have that perspective. I mean, this isn't just me saying something for the sake of arguing with you or to be contrarian. And I really think that the people who genuinely do believe and experience it to be Berenstein Bears, they think that we're just trying to be, we're just trying to cause conflict for the sake of it. And I don't know how impressionable most people are. I can't speak for everybody. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, probably more so than they deserve off the bat, and assume they're just really intelligent. I'm steadfast to my mind. And minds aren't always accurate, they're not always perfect. However, mine has had a certain degree, okay, of competency that I consider to be good enough, okay? And that's a good track record for most people. You know, that's above and beyond. Now, with that in mind, let's take a move into some of the more outlandish explanations for this, and examine each one. Now, there's generally three. The first one is more grounded in realistic science. Now, a lot of people have said, I want to say the CERN, the Hadron Collider, experiments in particle physics have produced some kind of a ripple in time-space, which is changed through a very butterfly effect kind of situation, minor things, and some of these things are them. And to name a few off the top of my head, because I was looking at the list earlier the other day, you know, Skechers shoes, to me, there was always a T in that. Fruit Loops was always spelt like the word fruit, okay? And it's weird that a lot of these examples are brand names, because for something that is legitimately so disturbing on like a mental level, for it to be associated so strongly with something as insignificant as company brand names, it's, you know, like Febreze always had two E's, you know, it's such a weird thing. Now, what people say with this theory is, that, you know, it makes sense because it calls to the recent discovery, or should I say, affirmation that gravity waves possibly exist, because the discovery was based on light pattern flashes. And, you know, let's face it, I'm a pretty scientific person. I'm also a huge skeptic, and I think I'm about 50-50 with both. So when I heard about that discovery excited me because of what the potential that comes from it is, but I have to admit, it's not conclusive proof to me yet. I want to see them push forward in that initiative more. And then again, not to get too further back into things, but science is controlled by private institutions that lend money. You know, the process by which science research is undertaken isn't necessarily be trusted on its own, you know? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Now, for the particle collision, right? We did some experiment that either knowingly or unknowingly altered the fabric of space-time. Let's consider this. Why were the things that were affected the most such strange things as the name of a children's book series? Why that? In addition, calling to the list on the website that, again, is linked below in the description, how many of these changes haven't necessarily been discovered by people? And depending on what that number is, what is the rate of things being changed? That would lead us to having to discover a pinpoint time frame for which this change took place. A lot of the videos that I watch seem to boil it down to a 5 to 10 year period, but I don't know how you can rely on that without knowing what the cause is. If it's a particle physics experiment, I mean, I guess we don't necessarily have conclusive evidence of when exactly, you know, official secret testing facilities started to work with that stuff, but if we did, it'd be easier to assess that. Now, the next theory is one that I find, I honestly, like, I don't know if I buy this one too much, but it's pretty funny. I mean, the next theory is that someone straight up time traveled, okay? Which, I mean, I like the idea that, like, let's just humor me. It's real. Somebody time traveled and they caused these small butterfly effects in the form of changing our perspective and our perception of company names and children's book franchises, as well as movie lines, dates, and apparently the locations of continents like New Zealand. That's a thing. I don't know. Let's say that's the case. What did that guy have to fucking do? Okay, that's a good question right there. What did that guy have to do for those specific things to change? I mean, my god, dude, you must have fucked up pretty bad, dude. Fucking Berenstein bears, dude. Like, what did you go to the library? Now, the thing that I really want to talk about here is the most controversial explanation of this theory that's rooted in, I don't know, the metaphysical, if you will, and that's that we've shifted between alternate dimensions. The popular adult cartoon Rick and Morty deals frequent with this theme. In a clip that I provided, I think it illustrates visually perfectly the point of a multi-dimensional theory, and that's to imply that there is an infinite, or at the very least a sheer, a massive amount of alternate realities that intersect with each other and exist without our ability to directly interact with them, that reflect small differences. For example, there can be an entire universe where the only difference is that this cabinet is a darker shade of brown. Where do I stand on this kind of stuff? Well, that's not necessarily the point of this video, but to sum it up real quick, I think that if that was to be the case, it would exist for the realm of probability. In order, I would say, for there to be a kind of underlining singularity between all of these millions, or possibly infinite universes, okay, or dimensions, whatever it is. Don't want to get too far into that. I would say that it exists such that it needs to exist, or all of them need to exist in order for different things to happen. Now, that really depends on how you conceptualize choice and possibility in and of itself. I mean, does there need to be that many dimensions for different things to happen? I don't know. I'll leave that to you, the audience. However, going back to our little example here, I think it's fascinating that I mean, let's say, humor me again. Let's say we really did cross dimensional barriers here, right? I just think it's hilarious that the one thing that's different in this dimension is or among other things, but the one main thing that we're focusing on here is the name of a children's fucking book series. I can't get over that, dude. I cannot fucking get over that. The Berenstein fucking Bears, dude. Like, there could be a million other things that could be different, okay? And there is, like I said, it's a long list on that website. And some of them are like, you know, like, I don't know, maybe that's honestly just a memory issue. And some of them are like, well, I legitimately remember that different. Now, even if all the examples were fake, it's still a concept to talk about. But I have to say, and it sounds so ridiculous, but I'm so strongly invested in how I feel about this, honestly. And I know, an emotional argument, not the best thing. I know, I get it. But if nothing else, if none of the other examples, the Berenstein Bears example to me is so prevalent. I am so thoroughly convinced that I experienced that book. I directly, visually observed it to say Berenstein Bears, that the fact that to go on to Google, when I first saw this, I was like, there's no way, what are you talking about? I went to Google, I typed in Beren, and then it said Stain Bears. I was like, wait, that's a typo, right? That's just a typo. I clicked it, and book covers, book titles shown up. Berenstein, 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 Berenstein. It's just boggling to me. It boggles the mind to think that something I was so sure of. Now, people say this, and again, going back to defenses of the realist, people say, well, Stein is a common Jewish surname. So people might have associated it, hearing it as kids, with Stein, right? It's easy to you can see where the mix-up would happen. You can see that. However, not just my own parents, but with examples of people who were over 30, who were well past the age of development, which it would be acceptable to have that kind of a mental slip-up, with those people chiming in, it shows that it's not just something in, like, a misperception of, like, what it actually says. There's clearly some kind of discrepancy going on here. The question is why? Another good question about this dimensional theory is, let's say, for the sake of argument, that it's absolutely 100% true. Why is it then that the knowledge is still obtainable in our minds? If there was some kind of a paradigm shift in the dimensional balance, which, my god, I just fucking made a sci-fi series right there just saying that. But if there was some kind of a shift, wouldn't our knowledge of what comes from what would be our home dimension shift to reflect the dimension in which we currently exist? If it's the case that it's that easy to carry dimensional knowledge across a dimension, I would think that there'd be a lot more discrepancies going on in the world than just the title of a couple things and some dates. So it really makes me question what the nature of the differences between dimensions would be, and what kind of thing would cause a shift, if not, again, for the particle reactor. So that's why I kind of connect those two angles together, but there's so many questions that kind of contradict each other even within them, that you have to wonder if it's either one, if it's one or the other, which one it would be, and why it's that one. So all in all, as you guys can tell, there's a lot of important questions and considerations to take into account here. And it's going to require a lot longer of a video to really sit down and analyze it more. So I hope that this first episode of the Foil Foray has set up for you guys an interesting topic. The next topic I want to do is the philosophical notion of nihilism and a meaningless universe. We'll go into that. That's going to be a fun fucking video to make. Alright, I'm going to smoke some fucking weed for that shit. But until then, you guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. The Foil Foray. It smells like shit in here. And it's called the Mandela Effect. It's called the I can't fucking see out of this tinfoil effect. That's what it's fucking called, dude.